Welcome to Washington Today on C-SPAN Radio for Friday, November 22nd, 2024. Matt Gaetz says he will not return to Congress, telling conservative podcast host Charlie Kirk, "I'm still going to be in the fight, but it's going to be from a new perch." Matt Gaetz resigned his House seat when President-elect Donald Trump said he would be nominated for Attorney General, but yesterday, Matt Gaetz withdrew the nomination. He also tells the podcast about why he pulled out. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene will be chairing a new subcommittee in the next Congress, working with the Trump administration's new advisory federal spending cutting group to be called the Department of Government Efficiency. We'll hear from the full committee chair, James Comer, and also the leader of the largest federal employees union, Everett Kelley. Senator Bob Casey, Democrat of Pennsylvania, concedes his reelection bid to Republican Senator-elect Dave McCormick midway through the recount. Senate Foreign Relations Committee senior members, Republican Jim Risch and Democrat Jeanne Shaheen, talk about the war in Ukraine and the Trump administration at the Halifax International Security Forum in Canada. Less than a week before Thanksgiving, the White House points to falling costs of a turkey meal and the gas for the car trip, and the U.S. Capitol Christmas tree arrives in Washington from a national forest in Alaska. We start with a development in a Donald Trump legal case. NBC News writes the judge presiding over Donald Trump's New York hush money trial on Friday postponed the sentencing that was scheduled for next week to allow for more time for arguments on whether the case should be dismissed. The judge ruled after Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office said in a court filing this week that it would not oppose a motion by Trump's attorneys to delay his sentencing on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. In a brief order, the judge set new deadlines in early December for Trump's lawyers and prosecutors to make their arguments about whether the case should be dismissed in light of his being elected president. That was from NBC News. And now to Matt Gaetz, withdrawing his name Thursday as President-elect Donald Trump's intended nominee for Attorney General. CBS News writes the decision came amid an investigation by House Ethics Committee for alleged sexual misconduct and illicit drug use. And Gaetz denied any wrongdoing and called the investigation a smear. And this in the article, at least 15 GOP senators might have opposed the pick, according to a source. One GOP senator told CBS News that there were at least 8 hard no votes on Gaetz, a total that never budged. And that would have been enough to defeat the nomination if all Democrats voted no. Matt Gaetz writing on Thursday, "There is no time to waste on a needlessly protracted Washington scuffle. Thus, I'll be withdrawing my name from consideration to serve as Attorney General." And Matt Gaetz today spoke more about it on the Charlie Kirk Show podcast.
Then as it relates to where the Senate was, Charlie, look, there were senators that had not gotten to yes. And what I can tell you is the movement was unidirectional. The more I got to talk to senators, the more they started to understand that these priorities of mine would bring the country together. They would get the Justice Department back on track. And frankly, they're going to be the priorities of the Trump administration under a fantastic Attorney General, Pam Bondi. I know what an immigration hardliner Pam Bondi is. I know that she's got no tolerance for the censorship. I know that she actually was part of the election integrity infrastructure in Florida that became the model for the country, and she can deliver that election integrity through our civil rights division. So it was more a matter of pace than anything, and the pace was just going to be too long for me. And with someone like Pam that we can put right there in that spot, we're going to be far more successful as an administration.
Matt Gaetz on the Charlie Kirk Show podcast today, referring to former Attorney General of Florida Pam Bondi, whom President-elect Trump says he will now nominate as Attorney General. Matt Gaetz is a former congressman, Republican of Florida, who was reelected on November 5th and resigned to pursue the Attorney General nomination. And he was asked today if he planned to try to return to the House.
I'm still going to be in the fight, but it's going to be from a new perch. I do not intend to join the 119th Congress. There are a number of fantastic Floridians who've stepped up to run for my seat, people who have inspired with their heroism, with their public service. And I'm actually excited to see Northwest Florida go to new heights and have great representation. Charlie, I've been in an elected office for 14 years. I first got elected to the state house when I was 26 years old, and I'm 42 now. And I've got some other goals in life that I'm eager to pursue with my wife and my family. And so I'm going to be fighting for President Trump. I'm going to be doing whatever he asks of me, as I always have. But I think that 8 years is probably enough time in the United States Congress. In Florida, our voters got to vote on term limits for state government, and the campaign was 8 is enough. And so you can only do 8 years in the Florida House of Representatives. And so it seems like a pretty poetic time to allow that great new blood to come in, to allow my district to have high quality representation. And don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not taking off for a tropical excursion for the rest of my life. I am here to help save this country. And one thing the great patriots at Turning Point know, we need people at every level. We need brilliant lawyers on the outside. We need tough congressmen and congresswomen on the inside. We need a leadership structure under President Trump that's going to allow for durability of our movement and the ability to continue this great realignment of our politics. And so I'll play a part in that. I plan to be a big voice, but maybe not as an elected member of the government.
Matt Gaetz on the Charlie Kirk Show podcast today. And Governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, Republican, has announced the dates to fill the seat left vacant by Matt Gaetz' resignation, Florida's 1st congressional district. The special election primary will be January 28th, and the general election will be on April 1st. President-elect Trump posted Thursday night in nominating Pam Bondi now for Attorney General. For too long, the partisan Department of Justice has been weaponized against me and other Republicans. Not anymore. Pam will refocus the DOJ to its intended purpose of fighting crime and making America safe again. Senator Chuck Grassley, Republican of Iowa, expected to chair the Judiciary Committee in the next Congress. Writing on X, Pam Bondi is a longtime prosecutor and effectively led Florida's large attorney general's office for 8 years. She is well regarded and experienced. I got to know her during the first Trump term when Trump signed the first criminal justice reform in a generation. We'll learn more as we vet her nomination in the Judiciary Committee. Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat from Connecticut, posted this video today.
Matt Gaetz was a threat to democracy, but so is Pam Bondi. Listen, we need to open our eyes as to what is happening here. Donald Trump has made it clear that he wants to turn the Department of Justice into an arm of the White House. He has said over and over again that he intends to use his power to prosecute and punish his political enemies. Pam Bondi's number one qualification is that she is a sycophant to Donald Trump. She buried cases of fraud against Trump University in Florida. She was a member of his legal defense team after he organized an assault on United States democracy on January 6, 2021. She will do whatever Donald Trump tells her to do. And he has said openly that he no longer sees the Department of Justice as an independent entity that protects all of us. He wants the Department of Justice to go after anybody who opposes him politically. That is the end to our democracy. So Matt Gaetz was a deeply unqualified, unserious nominee. But nobody should be celebrating that Matt Gaetz is not in line to be Attorney General and Pam Bondi is. She presents just the same threat to rule of law as Matt Gaetz did.
Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat from Connecticut, posting that video today. Story from the New York Times. Representative James Comer of Kentucky, chair of the House Oversight Committee, is planning to create a new subcommittee to partner with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to eliminate government waste. The committee, which is yet to be created, will work with the new Department of Government Efficiency, known as DOGE, and leading Republicans have agreed to allow Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene to serve as its chairwoman. Republicans said the committee would be charged with investigating waste and corruption within the federal government. Ms. Greene said in a statement on Thursday, "I'm excited to chair this new subcommittee designed to work hard in hand with President Trump, Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, and the entire DOGE team. We will identify and investigate the waste, corruption, and absolutely useless parts of our federal government." That was from the New York Times. Congressman Comer was interviewed about this on the Benny Show podcast with host Benny Johnson.
I have some great members like Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm pretty sure she goes on your show a lot. And, she's not afraid to back down or walk away from a fight. And she's got a strong private sector background like like Musk and Ramaswamy. She ran a pretty good-sized construction business. So she met payroll. She dealt with government rules and regulations, and she is going to be tapped to be the subcommittee chair that works directly with them. We're going to try to implement their recommendations, because that's all that Musk and Ramaswamy are going to be able to do, is recommend things for either Donald Trump to pass as an executive order or for Congress to pass as a law. Mm-hmm. And with respect to Congress, if you go back 4 years ago when Trump was president the first time, he didn't really have a go-to person or a go-to committee in Washington. He was dealing with McConnell, or he was dealing with Paul Ryan, and they were negative nannies on everything he wanted to do. What Trump has with the House Oversight Committee are willing partners that want to make government more efficient. We don't care if someone's feelings get hurt because we eliminate their fat cat bureaucratic job in Washington. We want to work for the taxpayers, not the bureaucrats. And we hate the deep state. We've dealt with the deep state. We fought with the deep state. So we want to work with him to implement his policies and initiatives. And I think it's going to be a pretty good match.
Yes, great. And very quickly here, you can do this. There's Supreme Court, especially Supreme Court decisions that have been quite recent here. You can end these agencies. There'll be a lawsuit, no doubt, but... there's going to be a lot of lawsuits. And we're going to have to make sure we dot every I and cross every T, because remember, the personnel laws were written by the bureaucrats. And they were written by the bureaucrats for the bureaucrats. So once you get hired in the government, the way it is now, you're entitled to a job the rest of your life and a pension the rest of your life. And it's not fair to the taxpayers. We can't afford it. There are agencies that are in existence that don't need to be in existence. Maybe they were relevant a decade ago or 2 decades ago, but they're irrelevant now. They're obsolete. And the American people can't afford it. And we're spending too much money in Washington, which has led to inflation. So we've got to whittle it down. And you have Republicans talk about it a lot, but very shallow in substance and never deliver. It's, we couldn't deliver with a Democrat Senate and a Democrat president, but with a Republican president where we're working hand in hand and a Republican Senate, I think we can get some things done.
Congressman James Comer, Republican from Kentucky, chair of the Oversight and Accountability Committee. C-SPAN spoke this morning with Everett Kelley, national president of the American Federation of Government Employees, a union representing about 750,000 federal employees, about this new DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency.
I think it's a little asinine to even think of the possibility of cutting 75% of the federal workforce. I see it as a direct attack against veterans, of which I am a veteran myself, because of the workforce, about 642,000 of that workforce are veterans. So when you say you're going to cut 75%, that means that there's a direct attack on veterans itself. And I'm appalled by that.
When you say that every federal employee is a necessary employee.
Absolutely.
Why so?
Well, think about it. Think about the people that we represent, okay? We represent the people at the VA, okay? These are the people that we provide a service to the veterans that are returning home from war, okay? That's a necessary job. When you think about Social Security, they're the people that take care of, in my opinion, the most prized possession of this nation, and that's our elders, making sure that they get their Social Security checks on time. When you think of FEMA, okay, they're not running away from disaster, they're running to disaster to provide a service to the American people. When you think about the Bureau of Prisons, these guys are out there making sure that our community is safe every single day. We sleep easy at night because criminals are behind bars. So, and any array of these organizations, or these agencies rather, we make sure that we are servicing the American people.
If the recommendations are made by the two gentlemen and the staff that they're going to use, and if cuts are made to either employee size or departments itself, what's the potential impact on those services that you talked about?
Well, it will be a drastic impact because, like I said, we are the ones that's making sure that Social Security checks are out on time, okay? You start cutting 75% of that, it's not going to happen. When we're making sure that veterans are taken care of, you start cutting 75% of that, it's not going to happen. But the truth of the matter, okay, it's not that they're trying to make the government more efficient. What they're trying to do really in all essence is contract out these jobs so that, and when they do this, then it's a matter of not the patriotism that the people that I represent display, but it's about the bottom line. It's about making a dollar, okay? And that's what it's all about, And, I remember, and I'm a retired Department of Defense employee. And I remember the saga when I was employed with the Department of Defense, when contractors was bidding on our jobs, bidding on various portions of our jobs, right? And the sad thing that I remember is contractors were charging the government $600 for a hammer, okay? This is the type of thing you get into when you start contracting out jobs, and things like that. It's not a cost savings at all, okay? But I would enjoy the opportunity to sit down with the administration to talk about how we make the government more efficient. Okay, we're not saying that it shouldn't be. We're saying that we should sit down and have those conversations. For instance, if you really want to talk about making the government more efficient, let's look at Medicare, okay? Okay, I think that there's an opportunity that we could save about $60 billion there. When you look at the RS, let's look at that. Let's have this conversation, because there's about $1 trillion savings when you start looking at those that will evade taxes just this year. So let's have those conversations and talk about how we can be more efficient.
Everett Kelley is the national president of the American Federation of Government Employees Labor Union, joining C-SPAN on our morning program, Washington Journal, this morning. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, the two that President-elect Donald Trump has named to lead this advisory group called the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, wrote in a Wall Street Journal op-ed this week, DOGE intends to work with embedded appointees in agencies to identify the minimum number of employees required at an agency for it to perform its constitutionally permissible and statutorily mandated functions. This is Washington Today. The Secretary of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Al Schmidt, putting out a statement today. Following Senator Casey's concession announcement yesterday afternoon, his campaign submitted a request to the Department of State to halt ongoing recount efforts. Last night, the department informed county elections officials to cease their recount activities because Senator Casey withdrew, and continuing the recount would not be in the best interest of taxpayers. That was the statement from the Secretary of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Senator Bob Casey, a Democrat, conceded to now Senator-elect Dave McCormick, a Republican, in a video statement Thursday.
I just called Dave McCormick to congratulate him on his election to represent Pennsylvania in the United States Senate. As the first count of ballots is completed, Pennsylvanians can move forward with the knowledge that their voices were heard, whether their vote was the first to be counted or the last. This race was one of the closest in our Commonwealth's history, decided by less than 1/4 of a point. I'm grateful to the thousands of people who worked to make sure that every eligible vote cast could be counted, including election officials in all 67 counties. When a Pennsylvanian takes the time to cast a legal vote, often waiting in long lines and taking time away from their work and family, they deserve to know that their vote will count. That's democracy. I'm proud of the work we've done since Election Day to enfranchise voters across the state, no matter whom they voted for, and to ensure that the democratic process could unfold. In just a few days, we built an organization of 350 staff across the state, joined by more than 1,000 volunteers who helped more than 6,000 Pennsylvania voters make a plan to fix small issues with their ballot, so their vote would be counted.
Senator Bob Casey, in a video posted Thursday, his defeat ends 18 years in the U.S. Senate. In the video, he thanked his family, campaign and office staff, and the people of Pennsylvania.
I want to thank the people of Pennsylvania for granting me the privilege of serving them for 28 consecutive years in public office as Auditor General, State Treasurer, and United States Senator. Every day I served in public office, I've fought for Pennsylvania workers, our children, seniors, people with disabilities, and our veterans. During that time, I've been guided by an inscription on the Finance Building in Harrisburg. Quote, all public service is a trust given in faith and accepted in honor. Thank you for the trust you've placed in me for all these years. It's been the honor of my lifetime.
Senator Bob Casey video posted Thursday early evening. The candidate who defeated him, Senator-elect Dave McCormick, quote tweeted the video, adding, Senator Bob Casey dedicated his career to bettering our Commonwealth. Dina and I want to extend our sincere gratitude to Senator Casey, Teresa, and their family for their decades of service, hard work, and personal sacrifice. I am so honored to represent every single citizen in Pennsylvania in the United States Senate and will fight for you every day. Thank you. Senator-elect McCormick was interviewed on Fox News Thursday.
Mathematically, it was clear from Election Day on that the election was over, and there was just not a path to victory. But there is an automatic recount in Pennsylvania. And what happened is you saw some of these provisional ballots. You saw election officials in Bucks County in particular saying that they were going to knowingly violate the law, where the law is very clear. The Supreme Court ruled that a ballot doesn't count if there's not a signature, and yet they were counting the votes, and it was made very public. And you know, the people of Pennsylvania stood up in Bucks County and across the Commonwealth and said, "Hey, wait a second, you know, we're going to follow the rules," and that was a good thing for Pennsylvania, a good thing for this election.
Well, I know everyone wants to forgive and forget and just move on and, you know, make your inaugural plans and all of that when you're sworn in. But I think we got to learn from this, because this keeps happening, where the people who are accusing Republicans of being election deniers is often the case. They're the election deniers themselves, and this can't continue. So your message to Governor Shapiro tonight, who did not come out, unless I missed something, and intervene here and say enough is enough. Where was he?
Well, I think you're right. I think enough is enough. I mean, we have had election after election which have been called into dispute. So we need legislation in Pennsylvania to ensure that some of this ridiculous things can't happen. We need to enforce the law. In this case, the law was very clear. So I agree with you. This can't go on, and we need to step back and look what happened in this election and make sure it doesn't happen again. The other thing we need is voter ID, because we're never going to have confidence in our election until you need voter ID, and that's something that I'm going to fight for day one in the Senate. I think we should have national voter ID. I know President Trump has advocated that, and I'll certainly advocate it in the Senate.
Senator-elect Dave McCormick, Republican of Pennsylvania, interviewed on Fox News Thursday night with host Laura Ingraham. And with this final Senate race decided, Republicans will have a 53-47 majority over the Democratic caucus in the Senate next year, the start of the 119th Congress. By the way, in the U.S. House, the current count, according to the Associated Press at our website, cspan.org, 219 House seats for the Republicans, 213 seats for the Democrats, and 3 seats still to be decided, 2 in California, 1 in Iowa. Senate and House are not in session today for business. They are starting the Thanksgiving holiday recess. When they return the week of December 2nd, there will still be major pieces of legislation left to complete for the current 118th Congress. The Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat from New York, spoke about this on the Senate floor on Thursday.
When the Senate returns after Thanksgiving, senators can expect a very busy few weeks to finish our work before the end of the year. Both sides must continue working together to keep the government open beyond the December 20th deadline. Letting the government shut down just before Christmas would be asinine, plain and simple, and nobody wants that to happen. Well, there may be a few in the other chamber who do, but they're a distinct minority. We must pass the annual defense authorization bill to provide for our troops and hold the line against America's adversaries abroad. We have passed the NDAA every year over the last 6 decades. With so much going on around the world, in the Middle East, the Indo-Pacific, and Europe and beyond, passing the NDAA is as critical as it's ever been. We intend to get it done. We also hope to make progress on the Farm Bill to avoid going over the so-called dairy cliff at the end of September. Chair Stabenow has released text of her bill earlier this week, and I want to commend her for drafting such a strong bill that provides for farmers and ranchers as well as working families through nutrition programs. Democrats are ready to work with Republicans to get the Farm Bill done. Another issue we hope to get done is disaster aid. Both sides know we needed to act because both sides represent states that have been impacted by disaster. Earlier this week, the Biden administration released a comprehensive plan for disaster aid that does a lot of very good things. It replenishes not just programs housed within FEMA, which is what most Americans think about when they think of a disaster response, but other programs across the federal government that are dangerously low on funding, if not totally depleted.
The Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat from New York, on the Senate floor on Thursday. An article from The Hill this week. The debate among Republicans over whether to punt government funding into the next year is heating up as lawmakers race toward their next shutdown deadline. Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana, this week said lawmakers are running out of time until the December 20th deadline and that passing an extension into early 2025 would be ultimately a good move because it would give Republicans and President-elect Trump a little more say in what those spending bills are. Quotes from the speaker in that Hill article. Congressman Andy Biggs, Republican from Arizona, posted a video on Thursday with his thoughts on federal government spending.
We have done 34 continuing resolutions over the last 10 years. A continuing resolution is where you monolithically keep your spending at the level it's at, and you also keep all the policies in place. Over that same period of time, we've managed to raise spending by doing occasionally a separate spending bill here, an omnibus bill there. But we're getting ready to, and people are talking about doing the 35th continuing resolution for this December. And I just want to make this perfectly clear. This is the reason that you're over $36 trillion in national debt. This is the reason that you can't eliminate bad policy. And this is the reason that you can't eliminate bad regulations or rules. So I'm urging my colleagues to not do another CR. Don't do another CR. Let's actually do the budget process where we go through and examine the agencies, the programs, the departments, and eliminate wasteful spending. And I commend President Trump for creating the DOGE with Mr. Ramaswamy and also Mr. Musk, who are leading that. And I also give a shout out to departing congressman, friend of mine from West Virginia, Alex Mooney, who put together this important graphic right here that we're going to get a digital and put it up on our website so you can see the timeline and how often we do these wasteful spending CRs. So when anybody tells you we need to do a continuing resolution, understand this. That means we're not going to change the programs. That means that we're not going to change the spending levels. That means that, for instance, Planned Parenthood is going to keep getting hundreds of millions of dollars. It means we're going to keep funding the chaos on the border. These are things that the American public just told us to stop. We need to stop the CRs. I'll keep you posted.
Congressman Andy Biggs, Republican from Arizona, posting that video. White House press release yesterday read, in case you missed it, your Thanksgiving turkey will be cheaper this year. The White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre spoke at her daily news conference at the White House about the cost of a Thanksgiving dinner and also of gasoline to get you to that meal with family and friends.
As Americans prepare for Thanksgiving, there's one more thing to be thankful for. Much needed relief at the grocery store and the gas pump. For the second year in a row, the average cost of a Thanksgiving meal is falling, and many grocery chains are offering deals for the holiday. According to the American Farm Bureau, the average price of the typical Thanksgiving dinner fell 5%, with turkey prices down 6%. And as more Americans are getting ready to travel to see family members and loved ones, the price of gas has fallen to its lowest point in more than 3 years. Prices at the pump are down about 25 cents per gallon compared to this time last year, and below $3 per gallon in almost 30 states. There's more to do, and we're fighting to further lower costs and grow the middle class. President Biden will continue to use every tool available to help American families put food on the table and keep money in their pockets.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre at her news conference at the White House on Thursday. CNN writes, with just 2 months until he leaves office, President Joe Biden is gearing up to utilize his presidential pardon power for foul reasons. Justice will be served Monday as Biden pardons the national Thanksgiving turkeys on the White House South Lawn. CNN has exclusively learned, participating in the 77th annual tradition of the turkey presentation, according to a White House official. Wall Street today, the Dow up 426, NASDAQ up 31, S&P up 20. Associated Press writes the Supreme Court is allowing a multi-billion-dollar class action investors lawsuit to proceed against Facebook parent Meta, stemming from the privacy scandal involving the Cambridge Analytica political consulting firm. The justices heard arguments in November in Meta's bid to shut down the lawsuit. On Friday, they decided that they were wrong to take up the case in the first place. The High Court dismissed the company's appeal, leaving in place an appellate ruling allowing the case to go forward. Investors allege that Meta did not fully disclose the risks that Facebook users' personal information would be misused by Cambridge Analytica, a firm that supported Donald Trump's first successful Republican presidential campaign in 2016. That from Associated Press. Washington Today continues in a moment.
Listening to programs on C-SPAN through C-SPAN Radio is easy. Tell your smart speaker, play C-SPAN Radio, and listen to Washington Journal daily at 7 a.m. Eastern. Important public affairs events throughout the day. And weekdays, catch Washington Today. Listen to C-SPAN anytime. Just tell your smart speaker, play C-SPAN Radio. C-SPAN, powered by cable.
Welcome back to Washington Today, available as a podcast on the free C-SPAN Now mobile app and wherever you get your podcasts. ABC News reporting from Kyiv, Ukraine. NATO and Ukraine will hold emergency talks Tuesday after Russia attacked a central city with an experimental hypersonic ballistic missile that escalated the nearly 33-month-old war. The conflict is entering a decisive phase, Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk said Friday, and taking on very dramatic dimensions. Ukraine's parliament canceled a session as security was tightened following Thursday's Russian strike on a military facility in the city of Dnipro. In a stark warning to the West, President Vladimir Putin said in a nationally televised speech that the attack with the intermediate-range missile was in retaliation for Kyiv's use of U.S. and British longer-range missiles capable of striking deeper into Russian territory. That was from ABC News. Senator Jim Risch, Republican from Idaho, currently ranking member on the Foreign Relations Committee and set to become chair, and Senator Jeanne Shaheen, Democrat from New Hampshire, who is currently the second ranking on the Democratic side and set to become the top ranking member in the next Congress. We're at the Halifax International Security Forum in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada today, and we're asked about the war in Ukraine and the incoming Donald Trump administration. Senator Risch begins.
To know Donald Trump, you have to understand, this man hates war. He is moved anytime a United States serviceman or woman is lost. One, he has incredible understanding of what war really means. He does not want war. He wants peace. I say that as my judgment. I'm not speaking for him. Nobody speaks for President Trump. But he said that, first of all, and I agree with him 100% when he said that invasion would have never happened if he'd gotten a second term. I believe that. But now he's going to be handed this as he starts his second term. And he has said, I'm going to end that on the first day in office. Now, I believe that's a euphemism for this is very high priority for me. I think he probably will do some things that as he starts before he takes that first day in office, or maybe he could do it the first day in office. But he has this as a high priority. This is a man who, when he says he's going to do something, you really ought to listen to him, because he has a tremendous history of accomplishing what he sets out to do. He says he's going to end this war. Now, I know all of you are saying, well, how is that going to happen? And I have ideas on that. I know he has ideas on that, and others do. But he has a way of negotiating with people and talking with people to get things done.
Well, in 1 minute, can you tell us your view, on what the way would be?
No, and I'll tell you why. I don't want to step on that message. I would say this. There's people that I've heard people that I laugh at say, "Oh, well, Trump's just in the pocket of Putin." Trump is in the pocket of no one, and I think Putin knows that. I would say this: when Putin gets that phone call, and he will, he needs to listen very, very carefully to what President Trump lays out for him. The last thing he wants to do is to get on the wrong side of President Trump. President Trump will do his best to bring this to a conclusion. We all know wars end when both sides either one side completely defeats the other militarily, or the other side, or both sides get tired of fighting. We're at a place where it is time to talk about this, and President Trump is going to talk about this, and I would strongly urge the parties that are involved in that to listen carefully to what he has to say. My view, as far as the war is concerned now, Russia has already lost this war. Ukraine hasn't won it, but Russia has lost it. They set out to do two things. They set out to invade, to take Kyiv, to set up a puppet government, and then occupy the country virtually like they're doing in Belarus. That was their objective. They did not get that done. They will never get that done. The brave people of Ukraine have said, "You will never do that." And I believe them. I've talked to a lot of them, and when they say they'll fight to the death to protect their country, I believe that. At the same time, everybody needs to listen to President Trump when he says, "What do we need to do to get this done?" That's what I have to say.
Senator Sheen, do you share that, optimism, or do you have a different expectation?
Well, clearly the Ukrainians are going to have to weigh in on what happens there. And so I think, as Peter said so eloquently, that we all of us in democracies owe a debt of gratitude to the courageous Ukrainians for standing up to Vladimir Putin. I really appreciated the opening video this afternoon because I got to go to the 80th anniversary of Normandy this year. I had never been to Normandy. My father fought in World War II. I lost an uncle in World War II. And to see the veterans who were still there, aged from 97 to 107, and to listen to the leaders, the allies who fought that war, because that to me was the message that came out of Normandy, that came out of this video that Minister Blair talked about. It is that idea of collective defense. The United States has an important role, but what has made us so strong is our allies, our ability to put together a coalition and to work together. And that clearly is going to weigh in prominently in what happens in Ukraine, in what happens in Taiwan, and what happens in the Middle East. This is those of us who care about democracy, who believe that that's the right of people to be free, to enjoy freedom, working together, are able to address these kinds of conflicts.
Senator Jeanne Shaheen, Democrat from New Hampshire, and Senator Jim Risch, Republican from Idaho, at the Halifax International Security Forum in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. Story from Reuters: China is willing to conduct active dialogue with the United States based on the principles of mutual respect and promote the development of bilateral economic and trade relations, Vice Commerce Minister Wang Xiaowen said on Friday. Wang, also China's international trade representative, said China would be able to resolve and resist the impact of external shocks, responding to a question about the impact of potential tariffs from U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. That was reporting from Reuters. The Deputy Secretary of State in the United States, Kurt Campbell, was at CSIS today, Center for Strategic and International Studies, and got a question about U.S.-China relations and specifically about Taiwan.
Yeah.
My name is Iris Shaw. I'm DPP representative in Washington. Really want to thank you for successfully operationalize this Let's Work strategy concept. It is really, for Taiwan, at least, a paradigm shift, and Taiwan has an important role to play. And with some early success in the South Pacific, in light of the backdrop of the U.S. China strategic competition and technology competition. So I just want to know if you think this kind of a paradigm shift will continue to stay on. Please.
So look, I would say one of the proudest arenas of bipartisan engagement has been on issues associated with our policy across the Taiwan Strait. And I think through persistent, determined efforts, we've helped maintain peace and stability for decades. And frankly, if you look, you're always trying to figure out, are there areas that you can really say, yeah, I'm proud of what's been achieved. As you look at Taiwan, a flourishing, extraordinarily successful democracy with an incredibly enlightened young population. If you ask many people, where do you go for the most innovative cuisine, fashion, innovations in technology? They say Taiwan. And that's a remarkable thing. And it's something we can all be proud of and that we're committed to seeing sustained. And I will say that rarely have I seen our unofficial relationship flourishing in so many different manifestations. And I will also say, when we face challenges in the cross-strait circumstance, as Victor indicated, it was often in the past only one country or two that would speak out about concerns about the maintenance of peace and stability. No longer. Large majorities of countries in Europe and the Indo-Pacific believe it is fundamentally in the interests of their populations and the global community for the Taiwanese people to be able to live in peace, and that the sustainment of that peace and stability is in the best interests of all concerned.
Deputy Secretary of State Kurt Campbell in Washington at CSIS, the Center for Strategic and International Studies. This is Washington Today. From Scripps News, this year's Christmas tree for the U.S. Capitol reached its final destination in Washington on Friday after traveling over 4,000 miles for a nearly month-long journey with stops in 17 states. Each year, the U.S. Capitol's Christmas tree is chosen from one of the country's 154 national forests. This year's 80-foot Sitka spruce was brought in via flatbed tractor-trailer from the Tongass National Forest in Alaska. The article also notes the tree has been dubbed Spruce Wayne after a naming contest on social media. Jim Kaufman, director of Capitol Grounds and Arboretum, architect of the Capitol's office, was there to accept the tree.
This year marks the 60th anniversary of the Capitol Christmas tree, and we are honored to have this Sitka spruce all the way from the Tongass National Forest, located in the great state of Alaska. For more than half a century, the Forest Service has been an incredible partner in making sure we have the perfect selection for the people's tree. And we are proud to have this Alaskan tree this year for the second time. I'd like to thank the United States Forest Service and especially the awesome team from the Wrangell District. Y'all did a great job in finding the perfect tree in the world's largest temperate rainforest. What an experience. So this year, the tree had quite a journey. It traveled more than 700 miles over the sea and more than 4,000 miles on land. Made many stops all the way around on its journey to the Capitol. I also want to have a special thanks to the Wrangell, to not just Wrangell community, but Wrangell High School students that use technology and innovation to help this tree stay fresh during its long journey. We truly appreciate all the efforts to help bring the holiday spirit to Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. Today, we're going to set the tree in the West Front lawn. The Capitol Grounds and Arboretum team already hard at work. We'll spend the next several days decorating the tree with thousands of LED lights and thousands of handcrafted ornaments, handcrafted by the people of Alaska. We look forward to seeing the tree lit up in all its splendor for the 60th annual Christmas tree lighting ceremony on December 3rd. And we're so glad to have a beautiful tree that Alaskans and Americans can be proud of.
Jim Kaufman, director of Capitol Grounds outside the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Barbara Miranda, Tongass National Forest Deputy Supervisor, was also there explaining why this year's Capitol Christmas tree is so healthy looking after the long journey.
This is a year of firsts for the People's Tree. Not only is it the first time the tree has come from the Tongass National Forest, but there's also some innovative firsts that made it still stay as fresh and green as what you see here. It's bright and green and fresh with no needles falling off of it yet because it was harvested with the complete root ball intact. And some really innovative, ingenious Alaska kids figured out a system to keep that tree moist all the way across the country. It's a wonderful tradition and one that the U.S. Forest Service is really proud to have been a part of for the last 54 years, to deliver a tree from a national forest in the nation to the Capitol here in D.C. And so to have it come from Alaska, where people are diverse, very, very creative, and really resilient, is a real honor to be here, to be the one to be able to speak to the fact that Alaska is an amazing place. And I'm just thrilled to represent the people and the communities and cultures of Alaska as we traveled across the country, making whistle-stop tours all the way across as we came. It's really something that brought the people together, and in this time, that's something that we can all use. The logo that you see on the truck here, that was created by an Alaskan artist, symbolizes the iconic features that inspire the allure of Alaska and acknowledge the collaborative effort that was made to steward the resources in Alaska, and offers a special greeting from the Alaska Native people, with our 19 federally recognized tribes that call the Tongass National Forest home. They are the people that have stewarded those lands since time immemorial, and they offer these words in greeting to the people of the nation. Kayech, Sagu, Ka, Tuwuke. And that means peace, joy, and happiness. And we hope that's what this tree brings to the nation here.
Barbara Miranda, Tongass National Forest Deputy Supervisor at the ceremony on the west front of the U.S. Capitol building, welcoming this year's Capitol Christmas tree. And again, the tree lighting ceremony will be December 3rd, 5 p.m. Eastern. The architect of the Capitol's website says the tree will then be lit from dusk until 11 p.m. each evening through January 1st, 2025. Thanks for listening to Washington Today. Subscribe to C-SPAN's free evening newsletter Word for Word and get the stories making headlines in Washington sent to your inbox every day. Sign up at cspan.org/connect. Have a good night and weekend.